Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. We have a kind of weird one for you today, and not just because it's a 3 versus 3. When Humblebee here, in the Pan-American Tier 10 really nice battleship, the Libertad, sent this replay in, he said, I'm not sure this is worthy of going into an actual video, but I think you'd like to watch it anyway. And he was right and wrong, because I did enjoy watching it. And as you can probably tell based on the fact that you're sitting down watching this on YouTube right now, I did think it deserved going into its own video. Although I can understand why he might have said that. But anyway, you're about to see it for yourself, so you be the judge. Because there's quite a bit of going on in this battle. You'll probably know it when you see it, and if you don't worry, I'll point it out. And when I say, I don't mean because why is it 3 on 3? It's 3 on 3 because this is Tier 10 ranked. And that's also kind of important because it's ranked. This is not an arms race battle. This is not the kind of battle where there's all kinds of buffs lying around that give you free heals and increase the maximum health of your ship. And that's going to be significant. Because generally, when you see a battle in which somebody's just achieved like the server record for the damage done in a particular ship, it's usually happening in an arms race battle, because in an arms race battle you have all these buffs floating around that increase the health of the ship and give you free heals. But that is not the case here. I'm mentioning this as a way of leading up to something. Because last week we featured a replay from Sir Alvendor in the Smolensk, where after previously being featured in the Incomparable, and not quite managing to do 75% of the entire enemy team's hit points in damage, he had another go in the Smolensk and managed to get 85%, ending up with 286,000 damage done. What does any of that have to do with today's battle? What does any of that have to do with today's battle, Jingles? Well, it's what we call foreshadowing, kids. Oh, check this out. Notice he could be shooting at the Grosser Curve first, but he waits. What's he waiting for? Well, he was waiting for all of his guns to be reloaded. And why is he still waiting? He was still waiting because despite the fact that it would have been perfectly safe to shoot at the Grosser Curve first because it had just already unloaded its guns, he was waiting to get the island blocking line of sight so he could remain undetected and keep the Sibir, which is about to appear around the side of that island, guessing as to where he was. Big brain move there from Humblebee. And not the only big brain move we're going to be seeing from players on both teams in this battle. Now, the Sibir is a distinctly un-Russian battleship, and that it has actually pretty amazing secondaries. But there's pretty amazing secondaries, and then there's the Libertad secondaries. And all of those hits that he scored up until now have been charging his funny button, which is now active, and there it goes. Remember, the Libertad has a secondary battery consisting of guns that are bigger than those that you find on heavy cruisers. And when you pop that funny button, well, just look at the damage. The Sibir's secondaries are good, but they're not as good as this. So despite being a bit of a secondary powerhouse on its own, the Sibir is in big trouble here, and things are going to get worse before they're not going to get better. They're just going to get worse. The Sibir has its own funny button, by the way, but it's not going to help it under these circumstances. It gets charged up by tanking damage and gaining secondary battery hits. So its funny button is probably accurate right now, but what it does is improve the accuracy of the main gun battery. But at point blank range like this, it's not going to be a whole lot of use. The enemy Sicilia has just achieved first blood by taking down the friendly Delta. Just in case you don't understand the significance of that one, let me just repeat it for you and explain the context. In a battle where the entire enemy team consists of battleships, the destroyer on Humblebee's team is the first one dead. I'll let you mull over that one for a minute and I'll come back to it in a bit, but first I'm going to point out how things just got much worse for the Sibir, because he's not just being focused down by the secondaries of a Libertad, which would be terrifying enough, but those shots coming in from the starboard side are the main and secondary gun batteries of the friendly Grosser Curve first, so yeah. This is not a fun moment in which to be sailing a Sibir, or anything for that matter. Note though that unlike the Grosser Curve first, Humblebee's positioning means that he never has to fight more than one ship at the same time. And technically he's only really fighting half a ship there, because the Sabir is shooting at the Grosser Kerr first, and it's only the secondaries from one half of the ship that are going after him. The Grosser Kerr first, meanwhile, is getting pummeled by the entire enemy team at once. Which probably means that right after the Sabir goes down, and he has, the Grosser Kerr first is going to be next. So, about that Delny and the first moment in this match. I mean, I appreciate that the Delny is not the sneakiest destroyer around. It's the pinnacle of the Soviet gunboat destroyer line. But it still has 10-kilometer torpedoes, and while its stealth is pretty bad, it's better than a Grosser Kerr first or a Sicilia. So, when you're in a destroyer, going up against 3 battleships, and you still somehow manage to be the first one dead, I mean, that's a pretty impressive achievement. Speaking of getting dead, I think yep, there he goes. You are now the last one standing. You'll notice he's trying to disable the Grosser Kerr first's gun turrets, because the Grosser Kerr first is angled well against him. See, the problem for the Grosser Kerr first is that while being angled well against him means that you don't have to worry too much about the Libertad 16-inch shells, you can't turn your secondaries to bear. And Humblebee can. In fact, there goes the funny button. And just watch the damage mounting up. And again, he's slowly reversing here because he doesn't want to fight more than one at the same time. I mean, if you don't have to, why would you? That was the mistake the friendly Grosser Kerr first made. He was getting focused down by all 3 enemy battleships at the same time. It's a miracle he lived as long as he did. Humblebee is not making that mistake. And thanks to his smart positioning, just as the Sicilia enters the chat, he is once again only fighting one enemy ship at a time. But he is at a huge disadvantage here. The Sicilia, with 2 kills to its name, is still on full health. That is not a good sign. 94,400 when it came around the corner. Humblebee, by contrast, is not. Now his one big advantage here is his extremely powerful secondaries. So why isn't he using them? He is instead angling against the Sicilia's guns because he's lost 10,000 hit points since that enemy ship came around the corner, and he's waiting for his heal to come off cooldown. He's minimising the damage he takes while he waits for that to happen. There's the heal, there it goes. Now he's going to start turning the rudder and bringing those secondaries to bear. And if you watch that rear 9.2-inch secondary gun turret, you'll spot the exact moment when you can stop applying rudder and not show any more broadside than you need to, because your secondaries have cleared their firing arcs. And while he's doing this, he's going for the Sicilia's gun turrets to try to reduce the amount of incoming damage that he's taking and give his secondaries a chance to work. And it's at this point where I thought, you've got him now, Humblebee. The Sicilia has just committed a serious and fatal error of judgment. He's gotten impatient, he's swinging the ship around to get those rear turrets firing, giving you an opportunity to citadel him for death and end this fight right here and now. All the Sicilia had to do was just stay angled and keep raking your superstructure, damage saturated though it may be, with fire from those 8 front gun turrets. The Sicilia came into this fight with 5 times Humblebee's health. All he had to do was what he was doing, and he would have simply worn you down and won that way. But he got impatient, and he turned to give broadside, and now Humblebee's going to punish him for it. Except no, that's not what he's doing. This is actually the biggest brain move in the battle so far. You notice the Sicilia just launched its spotter plane. Why would you need to launch a spotter plane to spot a target that's less than 3 kilometers away from you? The Sicilia, as an Italian battleship, has a high-speed smokescreen. Now it's true, smokescreens do work both ways. You can't see out of a smokescreen unless the enemy is within smoke firing penalty distance and has just fired its main battery guns, which of course Humblebee just has. But the spotting from that only lasts 20 seconds, so that's why the spotting plane went up, and as long as he stays more than 2 kilometers away in the smoke and only fires the secondaries, he will remain undetected, which is all he needed to do, because he had both of the cap circles. He didn't need to win any harder than he already was. That was the ultimate big brain move there from the Sicilia. Humblebee might have won that one if he'd accelerated forward and gotten to within 2 kilometers so he could see the Sicilia and smash its broadside with his 16-inch AP. But honestly, in the time remaining, even if he'd thought of that, I'm not sure he would have been able to do it in time because, well, the Sicilia was so close to winning on points. That, by the way, in a battle where there were only 3 enemy ships to shoot at. Remember last week, Sir Alvandor in the Smolensk, in a 7 versus 7, did 286,000 damage? In a 3 versus 3, Humblebee just did 303,000 damage. So while I'm not trying to knock Sir Alvandor's achievement in last week's video in the Smolensk, he did less damage for 85% of the entire hit point total of the entire enemy team in his match. And in this 3 versus 3, Humblebee did 303,000, which was only 10,000 short of 100% of the entire enemy team's hit point total. Sadly for Humblebee, thanks entirely to some excellent play from the enemy Sicilia captain, that was never going to be a victory. It's always embarrassing to lose because your team just fumbled its way to defeat, which looked like what the Delny was attempting to do at the beginning of the battle, but Humblebee in fact lost because he simply got outplayed by, today at least, a superior player. And there's no shame in that. So, Humblebee, you can at least take consolation in the fact that despite the defeat, you got your team's only kills, you did almost 100% of the enemy team's hit points in damage, and if it hadn't been for some big brain moves from the enemy Sicilia at the end, you still might have carried that one. So hold your head high, you've got nothing to be ashamed of. And I hope you all enjoyed watching him almost win, because that is it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.